Something wrong. This is the 5th time I've recorded the start of this video and it's really struggling to come out today. So I thought I'd try opening with that instead. Welcome to the Reflective Rebels podcast. I am not going to press stop again. You're going to get whatever I record today. So this is the second ever solo episode, which is maybe why it feels hard, because it's new. And I made a whole list of different topics that I could talk about in terms of what holds business owners back, and I had loads of ideas planned, but something's really been niggling at me last week and this week, and it's been the focus of my attention, and so I sort of felt that the podcast has to be about that. And what happened was I launched the Badass Business Lab, which is my new group coaching program, in January, and last week someone left. They said they spent £450 so far and they didn't feel they got return on investment. Now, I probably shouldn't be talking about this openly, because hell, that's crap marketing, but I am, because that's what this is about. And do you know what? I fixated on it. It really bugged me and it really got me down, and I really started obsessing about that person that had left. And in amongst all that, I'd smashed my revenue targets again. I had amazing client success stories that were going on, and things were just incredible. The podcast has launched, so much good stuff is happening, but for some reason my brain was focusing on that one negative piece of news. And I thought, do you know what, if this is what's on my mind, if this is what's getting to me, then that has to be the thing that I talk about on the podcast. So here we are. So what was going on? Well, at the same time I was feeling really busy. You know, the great news about having loads of clients and launching a podcast and going weekly instead of fortnightly and preparing for the leadership conference next month, and all those things that are going on, is hell, I am busy at the moment. And when I get busy, my natural inclination is to work harder, work more, do more, knuckle down. And when that blow comes, that emotional blow of losing a client, and hits me at that time, my natural reaction is to feel shit and to focus on that. And what I realised when I was feeling shit last week was that I was taking away the things that make me feel good and acting habitually out of a sense of panic. So, you know, I was not going for the run. I was not cooking the healthy meal. I was listening to marketing podcasts rather than my fantastic audiobook that I've got going at the moment. So all of those things, I was taking them away. The things that give me energy and joy, I was stopping them. And I was thinking, I'll just work harder, I'll plan more things, I'll do more. And that reaction was not the right one. But I wanted to explore what was going on in my head. What does coaching tell us about that? And what can we do about it? Because maybe you felt the same thing. Things are actually going really well, but instead of celebrating and feeling amazing, you actually feel shit. What's that about? So one of the first things that is happening here is something called the negativity bias. So you may have noticed, but our brains are naturally programmed to focus on the negative far more than the positive. Social media and the horrible media prey upon this by feeding us all those horrible headlines, but unfortunately for us, it does suck us in, and that's because that's what our brains do, and we have to work really hard to fight against that and recognise actually there's a lot more going on than our brains are tricking us into focusing on. And the other thing is this idea of the arrival fallacy, this thought or obsession that we have that if we just get to that next place we want to get to, we're going to feel happy and content. So mine was about this monthly recurring revenue figure, and actually I hit that. But when I got that bad news, all I was focusing on was the fact that I hadn't got to the next one that I wanted to be by Christmas, and I wanted to work harder and do more to get there faster. I'd forgot to stop and recognise that actually I was exactly where I wanted to be. Instead, I was focusing on the future and where I wanted to be in another 6 months' time, and creating some false sense of panic and pressure completely put on myself. And I think you can probably recognise that. I think we all do that to an extent. We're so obsessed with the past or the future that we forget to remember that there only exists this one beautiful moment in the present. So what did I do about it, and what can you do about it if you are equally feeling shit right now? And not because things are necessarily going particularly bad, but because your brain is making you focus on the things that are, or is obsessing about somewhere you should be in the future rather than appreciating what you've got right now. Well, the first and foremost thing when I'm feeling like that I have to remember is energy in is energy out. My job is about spreading joy, and I work really hard with people in some amazing situations and some really tough situations sometimes, and that takes a huge amount of energy. If I start pulling away the things that make me feel good, I am not good at doing what I need to do for my clients. So I've doubled down in the last 10 days on those things. I've been listening to an amazing new audiobook by a Cumbrian author. I've been out in the glorious sunshine that we're getting this spring. I've been running, and I've just been making time to watch crap telly if I want to. And do you know what? The impact of that, hopefully you can see in my energy today, has been absolutely massive. Energy in is energy out, and that is crucial. The second thing that I do in these situations is something I recommend everybody does, and it's practicing gratitude. What the hell does that mean? When I say practicing because it's something we have to do on a regular basis. It's a muscle that we can build up. If our brain is naturally inclined to focus on the negative, practicing gratitude is one of the ways we can tackle that. At the end of each day, sit down and write 3 things that you're grateful for that have happened to you. They could be absolutely teeny tiny things, like before seeing a bunch of daffodils all down the road just made me smile. Or they could be actually huge things, like for me, hitting my monthly recurring revenue targets and signing a load of new clients. They could be tiny, they could be huge, but focusing on those things that you have got and training your brain to think about those things helps you not to focus on the odd few things that might be not going your way, that are always going to be there. So then that leads us on to mindfulness, which is something I'm obsessed with practicing. And I say practicing again because it's something that we have to keep coming back to. What I was doing is I was worrying about the future. I was focusing on what was going to happen. And I've totally lost my train of thought, but I said I'm going to dig deep and I'm not going to stop this anymore. Yeah, mindfulness, gratitude. Don't focus on where you're going. Spend time in right now, because it's the only moment that exists, and it's the only moment that we've got. And then once I'd done those things, once I'd sorted out my own energy and sorted out my own brain, then I could actually get curious about that failure that I'd had, about that client that left, that said they weren't getting value for money from the thing that I'd built. And being able to get curious instead of just frustrated or emotional or, do you know what, just feeling a bit shit about myself, means that I can learn from it and I can do something about it. And I've reflected on whether they were the right person or they were in the right place for their business to be in the club, but I've also reflected on what I was doing. And in the last session this week, I changed things up based on feedback that I had, and I made it a damn sight better. And if I just stuck myself in the frustrated, feeling sorry for myself zone, none of that would have been able to happen. But I was able to sort my energy out, sort my head out, and have a really good look at what I could learn from it. And that's the key thing about failure, isn't it? There's no such thing as failure, only data is the famous phrase. And yeah, I managed to learn something and do something differently as a result. So there was loads in there, and I feel like I've rambled. I feel like this episode might be a failure, and I'm struggling internally with it. But I've stuck with it, I've given it a go, and maybe you've learned something. Maybe you've switched off 10 minutes ago, which was probably before this even started. Anyway, I am Ben. I'm an executive coach. I do have my shit together, and I work with people who have their shit together too, but are human beings just like I am. If you can take one thing away from today that I mean genuinely could change your life, it's the idea of that gratitude journal. Take a notebook and a pen, put it by your bed, and every night note down 3 things that you are grateful for, and start focusing on the amazing stuff that's here and not all the crap that's going wrong. in the whole wide world right now and all the stuff in your life that you haven't got. Be grateful and realise just how much you have. If you'd enjoyed this, stick a lovely review and a star and subscribe wherever you are listening. And until next time, take care and keep rebelling.